Today, I'm excited to speak with John Owens, the author of The Corporate Cure. John is well known within our mortgage banking industry. John is currently the CEO of Primis Mortgage Company, a division of Primis Bank. Prior to that, he was the owner of American Trust, in addition to starting in our industry back at Citibank and Citi Financial. I'm so thrilled to have you talk about your book today. I think it's a classic within our industry. The Corporate Cure is really, I think, tells the world of what it's like to manage in our modern world and also the issues regarding culture, which I think is the key driver. So, first question I got to ask you is, why did you decide to write it? And tell me a little bit about that for our listeners.
A great question. I thought at the time I was crazy doing that. I thought I'd never write a book. In
Oh,
fact,
yeah.
I hate writing long emails. But there was just something that came about to me that I've always valued wisdom currency in growing a business. And I've talked to many different leaders at the time that who have written a book, but didn't have read necessarily the wisdom currency. And you go through college, you go through all that stuff. Nobody taught me in college all the experiences that I would have running
Yeah.
a large business. So it was me giving back of here's I'm going to document some of the things and try to really pay it forward on
Hmm.
some of the mistakes, some of the things I've overcome, and really some of the challenges that you face in not just our industry, but every industry as a leader.
Right.
So that just motivated me one day to wake up and say, you know what? I'm going to start putting this on paper and see where it goes.
Well, you did a fabulous job. And I love the stories how you started out talking about your passion about baseball. And I'm a sports fan myself. And so I thought that was a great way to lead into a culture issue. And in our industry, and you've been in it a long time, just like I have been, I think many leaders treat culture as like nice to have and nice to talk about, but not actually doing it. And what are your thoughts on that?
I agree. I think it's one of the most misused words in the
Hmm.
business language. I think a lot of people just put it on a break room wall or they say, we've got a good culture. And they'll actually have meetings and say, our culture is so good, but they don't talk about what it is and how to articulate it, define it, and apply it to business. And I really don't feel like they really study it. Like I went through, even talking about the baseball. I mean, I started as I was growing Ameritrust, growing our business, I started a baseball team. And I started putting just intentionally a culture into this team. And I would have people knock on my door and call me, say, hey, Johnny, we want to be a part of your organization. I said, I just have a travel baseball team. I don't have an organization. They're like, but
Yeah.
something you're doing, we want to be a part of it. So I would bring this coach in and find out that, well, they had some shared values because they saw what we were doing. And you fast forward it, all of a sudden, I'm building a facility in Charlotte, North Carolina, and growing one of the large Showcase Baseball Academy, SBA, one of the largest baseball academies in the country. And it's all based on something nobody ever did in academy structure is putting a culture and some foundation involved. So that's why when I said we talk about the book, you can apply it to so many different businesses.
I think that's the issue that I see with a lot of managers and a lot of leaders within mortgage banking that they somehow think we're unique. Oh, okay, we only have unique problems. Okay, nobody else has these problems. And I love the fact that at the end of the book, he took really case studies of really well-known companies and shared like, okay, how they kind of addressed it. And so, why do you think that has happened in mortgage banking that we feel it's unique, that nobody else has these problems?
I don't know. I think if you really look at your own desire and your own goals. So when I was establishing the culture, I really had to understand what the word meant. I mean, what bothered me is when we were growing fast, we would have some of the largest institutions you would think of come to visit us, and obviously you're like, "Hey, we want to buy your company."
Mhm.
And I would go around the room and we'd talk about culture, and everybody had a different view on what that culture was. Nobody could really articulate it or define it. And a lot of times people would look at it and go, well,
Right.
Why are you asking that question?
Yeah.
And I really feel like it's a foundation principles for the business to last. And so when I really went into, I really, like I said earlier, it's the most misused word in the business
Right.
language. I had to get a PhD on what this word meant and how can I apply it, articulate it, and define it within the business. And then I had to take that, like most companies, even when I consult, it's funny, Pat, when I consult companies, I'm batting 1,000 with this right now. We go in and we try to look at let's establish some core values
Hmm.
because that's one of the steps in really facilitating a really great culture and defining it. And everyone comes back in about 15 minutes, and I was one like that too. And they would steal some from other websites or go to the thesaurus and change some words around and say, here's our core values. It took me 3 months to come up with what we have today. And it's funny, it takes about businesses that I consult about that much too, because you really have to challenge your personal values and your business values. You can't be at work with one face and go home and be another. And
Correct.
you've really got to, for that to happen, you've really have got to have some belief and some conviction on what those values are going to help drive your business. And when you get challenged of those values, it's how do you act and respond. And some of those were some of the most defining moments in my career as we established what a culture was.
So, John, talk about, and you discuss this in Corporate Cure, you talk about the mistakes that you've made. Let's start off with that, and then we'll go into like, how did you correct them? But let's talk about the mistakes because you talk a lot about things that you ran across, and certainly you've experienced two defining moments in mortgage banking. 2007 and our other
Mhm.
sagas that have happened. So talk about some of the mistakes that you did, I think, early on, and then came to this conclusion, like, I better address this issue.
Well, it's really about myself, leadership.
Hmm.
I mean, I was a son of a Buffalo police officer, college athlete. So it was a driver, 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 or give me the ball, I'll make the plays.
Yeah,
And I would be around my team. And it was really, at the time, when it was necessary, things are going good. The business was growing.
yeah,
It was Johnny O. It was everybody's happy, everybody's
yeah.
excited. But when there was a little bit of adversity, I felt like I, as a leader, had to take it all upon myself. And that driver, 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 give me the ball really wasn't inspiring others to do great things or to help or be a part of and co-author the growth of the company. It was all on me.
Hmm.
And I took that personally. And so I went 18 months in 1998 when we first had our first crisis in our industry, at least in my career. And I went 18 months with the first set of failures in the business world. And
Hmm.
as an athlete, that's tough to
Right.
swallow. And my wife came up to me and said, "Hey, John, you need help." I'm like, "Gosh darn it, you're right. I need help. I need other people doing this and this." She's like, "No,
Yeah.
you need help." And it was a defining moment that I really had to come in and look at myself and my leadership. So that's when I went back into how do I transform my leadership into more of my intentional, authentic self. And I think it's so important. A lot of leaders don't really dive into what their authentic leadership is. I'm not a driver, driver, driver. I'm that guy who's ready to pick up everybody else and really celebrate others. I'm the guy who wants to
Mhm.
pass the ball, and that's with the leadership that I was not doing. And then after going through that and really then, like I say, investing all our money, we were days of going out of business back in 1998.
Yeah.
And I
Mhm.
put all my money into this word culture and how to define it. And I tell you what, a blink of an eye, a year later, 2 years later, waking up, winning the Inc. 500 and growing the business nationwide. It was something that was pretty powerful.
So, John, these events happened, and so what has surprised you when you look back at what was eye-opening that you didn't think was probably an issue, but turns out to be a big time issue?
It was really how I treated others,
Hmm.
where I thought I treated everybody very, very well, but I wasn't holding them accountable. I wasn't inspiring them.
Hmm.
I was managing them. I wasn't leading them. It was probably some of the biggest eye openers that I look back at. Now, the some of the blue collar kind of the grit that I was brought up with helped me get through that. And I think you have to have both because there's some times where you, as an entrepreneur, you're bleeding from orifices in your body you don't even know existed because of the
Right.
stress and the pressure. And so you've got to be able to withstand and grit through that. But then it's does that last? Does that last long lasting? No. It's how do you really inspire and lead others?
So when you think about, and especially in our industry and also in other industries, that this, drive to succeed can be overwhelming and obviously can lead to burnout and other things. It does seem like sometimes being different than that is not valued. And so therefore it's perceived as being weak when it really isn't weak. And we are mystified by always hiring, let's say production, valuing production versus maybe leadership skills. And so, what are your thoughts about that? Is that, what is considered the authentic self? Some people, they'll say, well, what's that all about? What matters is, we have to close deals.
Well, it's funny. Some people that yeah, right. You
Yeah,
get caught up in the P&L every month of we got to
sure.
get deals closed. One of the turning points of and the pivotal point of this cultural cure, this cultural transformation that we had is identifying you really when you go through this, you really clear your lens
Hmm.
on who is the right fit for your company.
Correct.
And again, we went through a lot of leadership. We would go through leadership meetings and they'd be 12 hours, 8 hours long grinding meetings.
Yeah.
And obviously this is earlier on. And I'd walk away going, gosh, we worked our tail off. We did 8 hours of work. We'd come back the next meeting and nothing was done. And because we didn't have the right people and the right vision,
Yeah.
the right shared values.
Hmm.
And when you go through this transformation, you're really the lens is clear on who is on your team, who the leaders, who you're hiring, who you're
Right.
promoting, who you're inspiring. All of a sudden, those meetings go down to we're in a meeting that was 8 hours and is now 2 hours, and people are sitting around going, "What are we going to do for the next 6 hours? Like we need to do." I'm like, "No, we're ready to go because we got things accomplished."
Hmm.
And one of the pivotal moments of my career is as I went through this, we had one of our the top producer in the company that I came home to my wife. I said, I just let this person go. And I think I threw up that night. And my wife was like, he's paying all your bills. I'm like, if I've got to be true to these values and to
Hmm.
my team, this person does not fit our culture. And Pat, I'm telling you, with the next month, it's in the book, we quadrupled our
Right.
business. We've got commission only salespeople helping each other and really inspiring each other. And now all of a sudden the company as a whole did much, much greater.
Yeah.
And so those are some extremes. And then we had another incident where we had one of the biggest ambassadors of the company, who person I loved, who's with me forever, just wasn't producing at all. Because
Hmm.
our culture is really a communal, really equally valuing sociability and results, had no results. And, that was difficult too. I had to let that person go because I
Hmm.
felt like, let me help you find a place where you can provide for your family better. But those are the things as a leader, I mean, when you talk culture, you got a lot of eyeballs on you and you
Yeah.
better live it and fulfill it.
So talk about, and you've already kind of done that already, but talk about like for our listeners that are leading teams and companies and so forth, kind of like the first three action points that they should take to really commit to having a positive culture. What is it? It sounded like you had an awakening about yourself. How are you going to that step?
Yeah, I think you really have to merge your personal values and
Hmm.
your business values. I mean, I can't go out and I think this is real important. I see this with leaders today, and I see them out at MBA conferences.
Hmm.
And for me, trust is a big one of our big core values. But then it's how do you define the word trust?
Right.
We just don't go through words. That's what I'm saying. When you articulate it, like
Hmm.
trust, everybody said we want to be a trusting company. Great. Well, what
Yeah.
does that mean, and how do you apply it in your everyday life? But you have some of the things like that going. If I talk about I need to trust people at work, I'll use this as an example, but then you see me afterwards on the weekend doing something deceitful and untrustworthy with my family or my kids or
Hmm.
relationships, well, that just it becomes hypocritical. That's not something that you really have a true conviction for. It's just a good word. You want others to be that way, but don't look at me. So I really feel like the first step is you really identifying really what's core to you, and then how do you apply that into the business world? And does that make sense for your company? And I think that's extremely powerful. And then how do you apply it and
Hmm.
articulate it?
So have over these years that you've managed, you've started businesses, you've been successful, have those values actually changed or are they the same today?
They're the same today.
Yeah.
It's funny, I hired Margaret Crommuller, who I love dearly, was my COO back at my first company. And when I brought her on here, I gave her a call. First thing she thought of was the core values. She's like, "Oh my gosh, I want to get back to that." And she commuted like 1,308 miles or something crazy from Denver to North Carolina because she missed and she understood those core values. And talk about when you're really
Hmm.
applying it and you're clearing lens of people who really bought into that. Margaret was one of those, and she's just been amazing.
So let's say consulting with other companies, what's what is it that you look for, and how do you figure that there's a misdiagnosis? Like in other words, they think one thing, but really what's going on, the troops don't see it that way.
Well, it's really it comes down for the leadership.
Yeah.
I've had CEOs in many different industries, not just
Mm.
mortgage,
Sure.
that would come to me and say, "Hey, John, we need to help production. We need
Hmm.
production improve. Excuse me. We need production improved. We need more efficiencies. We need operations. We need better strategy, our marketing, all that other stuff that my consulting company that we do." And when I look at that, then I'd have to come. We spend a lot of time with the CEO, the owner, the leader of the business,
Hmm.
because if they're not engaged in truly believing in what it's going to take for them to improve all of that and the buy-in of that, and then it established the culture. And we could talk strategy all day long. I could come
Yeah.
into a business and talk about I can improve this, this, and this. I could be in a business for 30 days and tell you what's wrong with it and what can be improved and come up with a strategy. But if they don't have a culture and a buy-in and shared beliefs that they can actually execute on it, and if they don't have a leader that actually believes in it, then it's wasting my time and wasting their time.
So I'm curious, do you have a set of questions that you kind of figure this out? I'm sure you do, because I know I do. And so what are the types of questions? I'm just curious on some of those questions that you ask that you can kind of get to the pulse really quickly. It doesn't take 10 years to figure it out.
No, exactly. And you're right. I have somewhat of a question here, but I've done this for so long that it's really getting to know the leader personally. I've got to understand what makes them tick and what's important to them personally. Just like the bank, Primis Bank that bought my company, the leadership there spends more time understanding who John Owens is and the board than they
Hmm.
do about do I know how to spell the word mortgage. And I think that's a crucial part of it because again, like I said, you've got to merge and you've got to really identify what the person's personal values are to their company values and making sure they mesh and they're aligned. So I spend most of the time getting to know, I mean, if we came into a relationship, it's really getting to understand the leader. Because
Hmm.
sometimes they've got personal things that are going on with them that they're
Sure.
reacting or underreacting to.
Hmm. So how I know the $64 million question is going to be, how do you evaluate, especially when you're interviewing? their values. And they all can talk the talk about trust and all these other types of things, but I'm curious about how you do that.
So, to your right, first conversation, and if they give you the textbook answers, you don't know.
Yeah.
But as you start, so what we do is we do a CureX, a corporate CureX assignment. Because
Hmm.
I've always wanted to know, I know how to define it. Again, I feel like I got a PhD in
Hmm.
this word culture, how to define it, apply it,
Hmm.
articulate it. So then, but how do we actually have a modeling of
Right.
really how is your company? So then we interview, and we have a dot plot
Hmm.
map that we interview key leaders. There's one segment, and then the next level of employees, depending what the industry is. And we go through a series of questions. We re-educate what the word culture is. We start getting what the business, what they feel like the business definition is, or their business definition, as well as how I articulate what the word culture is. And then we consolidate all that together and we put this map up for the
Hmm.
CEOs. And it's amazing because they can sit back and we put it up on a big screen. And it's amazing looking at the CEOs or the leaders looking at it, and they're silent for a few minutes. And it's funny, they come back and say, well, I know who no names are there, but I know who that dot is. I know who this dot is. And then oftentimes they're surprised going, well, wait, I thought because I said so, I thought we
Hmm.
had amazing culture. And now it's all of a sudden, this is what your culture is. And how do we improve it? And you've got this person right there that is
Hmm.
such an outlier. What are you doing about it? You already knew, you know who that person is. And I think that's how the transformation starts going into the belief of, yeah, I thought I heard, I saw on a podcast this word culture. I think we need it, but it goes beyond I think I need it because I read it and I saw it, I heard it, to actually I believe in it. And that's a big transformation for a leader.
So, in the practical sense, we're in a state of change, and I certainly see in my consulting business that many leaders are kind of deer in the headlights. And now, what you really are talking about is making changes that can be pretty significant, or you have to face the reality. And so, how do you see? How do you see? I mean, in other words, does something have to happen for the leader to actually recognize, like, hey, I don't have the results, and I got to do something? Is that usually the trigger event?
Typically,
Yeah, I suspect.
I mean that's the big. I mean when you're looking at your book ledger and you're barely
Yeah,
making payroll. I mean,
yeah,
there's nothing more shocking or more transformational than I need to make a change. But it's what do you do? Like I needed to make a change at the time. I mean, it was laying people off for the first time back in '98, first time in my business life. I thought I was failing, going, what am I doing?
right.
And my change was investing in the word culture and trying to get a PhD in it. And it's funny,
Yeah,
I had people at the time going, Johnny, what are you crazy? Why are you investing in it? We need better leads. We
yeah,
need
yeah,
something that to
yeah.
happen.
Yeah,
And some people left going, you're crazy, Johnny. I don't know what you're doing with that. And then all of a sudden, 2 years later, they're knocking on the door going, I can't believe what you did with the company. Can I come back?
yeah, yeah,
Those are some of the things that just happen. You're right. But leaders look at their bottom line, and sometimes that's what triggers it. But good leaders make changes before they have to be desperate. I mean, when you're looking at the bottom line and you're barely making payroll, you become in a desperate
yeah.
situation.
Changes
Our
the,
job, right? My job as a leader is 75% of my job needs to be and my hand needs to be on the pulse of the culture every day.
well, it's interesting that you say that, and it raises this issue about AI. Okay. It's interesting to me how the shiny object comes in effect, that's going to be some correction to the industry. And where these types of topics are considered soft and we really need to go to this level of this issue. How do you kind of see that? Is the industry kind of kidding itself?
Ex ask that again.
Well, in other words, AI in every conference and every LinkedIn post, they're always talking about AI is going to change the industry, and that's the way we need to go. And so instead of looking at culture, it's perceived sometimes as touchy-feely, kind of a soft topic, and really our solution set is, in essence, let's say a technology
Mhm.
solution set. And so kind of are they kidding themselves that this is technology is not the solution? We're talking about getting more out of people, and that ties together with culture.
I think again, I think culture drives everything.
Yeah,
I'll give you an example where I think sometimes people get fooled with AI and not valuing your culture. So right now our industry is laser focused in it. How can we reduce the cost to
right,
produce a loan?
correct.
So obviously you think AI, the only thing technology is guaranteed to do is increase your cost. So you got AI out there, which sounds great, and there are some great tools with that, right? That people want to incorporate. But if you don't have the buy-in from everybody that believes in that whatever we're doing right now is to lower the cost to the consumer, to our company to produce a loan. And
Mhm.
that may mean hiring less people. That may be better output individually that you have. If you don't have the buy-in and the belief in that, it'll never work. I mean,
Correct,
when AI was just coming out, we tried to do the same thing, and we had to step back and we had to really educate the team to let them know that, hey, nobody's getting fired because of this. This is not the intention of AI, is to remove all of our processors, underwriters, ops
correct,
staff, loan
Mhm.
officers, et cetera. The idea is how can we do more with less?
Correct.
And how does that benefit them? And so now, because if anytime we incorporate something AI, it's got to be more than John Owens that's involved into this. I've got to have buy-in and participation from every stakeholder in the business.
Well, you're so right. I could talk to you for hours, but you must be my soulmate because I've been on this topic for a long time too. And so I'm interested in maybe a couple takeaways you would have for our listeners today that are things that they need to think about and obviously implement.
I'd love to help anybody, but one of some of the things I would encourage everyone to challenge their existing culture that they have right now.
Right.
Do they feel like it's a name on a board or break room wall and something they use? How do you use that word and term, and how do you really get your own PhD into it on a daily basis? And how do the rest of your teammates know what your culture is? If I was at a cocktail party or a conference and I spoke to one of your top teammates and asked them about the culture, could they articulate it to find it similar to you? Do they have the same values? That's one of the things, the biggest challenge that I would really engage in that exercise because you'll see a whole transformation of your business once you do.
Well, John, I love all that you're saying. It's so true. And I think that as an industry, we need to recognize culture is more important than I think a lot of leaders think. That's for sure. I know you're a busy person, but certainly if our listeners can reach out to you if they have any questions or want to talk more about it, how can they get a hold of you?
Just email me, john.owens@primisbank.com. Be glad to help.
Well, John, you've been terrific today. I have to have you come back. We need to do more about this topic because I think our industry is in its state of change, and this is a great
Yeah.
opportunity to really get back to what really is the fundamentals in many ways. And so, thanks so much for sharing your wisdom. And certainly for our listeners, certainly subscribe to our podcast. We'd love to have you. Thanks so much, John. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate you, Pat. Thanks for everything you do. You're amazing. Thank
You
you.
too.
All
Uh,
right. Bye bye.